What we're going to look at now is actually start prepping up our mat so we can start adding elements. So this could involve you cleaning up aspects of your matte painting, elements that you don't need or don't want, or just making some subtle adjustments before we start bringing our assets in. So stuff like the sky, I don't want that. I want to get rid of things like this little car here and these windows, and maybe do a cleanup of some of the weeds and stuff like that. But some elements I do kind of like. I like a bit of tattoo graffiti, urban tattoos. And also the sign could be kind of interesting. So there's a lot in this that I really don't think it needs to be changed at this point, but I do want to address some of the tools for cleaning this up. For the demo purpose, I'm also going to reduce my canvas size back. So while that was working for my concept stage, I'm going to bring this back and sort of crop it down. If you wanted, you could potentially just open it up as another document. So do a duplicate, and that way you've got your concept in one document and this in the other. Don't forget to save your work often. It's very disappointing when things crash and you can't get them back again. Alright, so let's jump into this. I've still got my grid available to me, which is great, but there is my image. Actually, I'm going to step back. One thing I do want to just make sure that I don't do is when I am cropping this, I actually want to keep my perspective grid. So if I do crop this and I have delete crop pixels, it will cut off these perspective grids. So if I am intending to bring my perspective grid out later, that could be a no-no. So I'm going to untick that, and let's jump back and let's crop this out. So I'm just going to click and drag with crop still selected and give it a few seconds so you can actually see that they're still there, which is going to be potentially important. Awesome. So I'm going to turn my grid off. There's my concepts. I'm going to get rid of those as well. And now what we're going to do is we're going to start cutting this out. Now there's multiple sort of tools and techniques for doing this. So keep an eye out for them. There's only a few that I really use quite often. Now, first of all, I do want to say that if this is your only starting plate, image for your starting plate, which I have here, and you start erasing it, remember, non-destructive, which it is destructive, sorry. So if you do accidentally mess something up, it's gone unless you step back in history, and that potential might be gone as well. So if you are going to use this approach, what I do suggest is duplicate that sucker so that you have a backup, and turn off the visibility of the one behind. Big reason for that is grab an eraser and start erasing. Okay, nothing's really visible. Why can't I see anything? Actually, sorry, let me do that again. Erase, erase, erase. Why can't I see anything? Well, the simple reason is that you have erased, but the background image is identical, so you're not going to notice it. So that's why we turn the visibility off underneath, like so. The other thing I want to mention is if we are going to start erasing or using things like the lasso tool, and my favorite is by far the poly lasso tool, anti-alias turned on, zero feather, and we can go through and we can start clicking around what we want and close the shape and hit delete, and that will delete our asset. The big downside for that is if I want to bring that back, if I look at this, zoom in, and we're going to be looking at big images here, and I go, damn it, I've cut that bit off there. There really isn't a way that's going to be simple for me to get that back. So what I really want to start suggesting is that you start using masks for deep etching. And masks are absolutely amazing. I love them because they are quite forgiving. So here is my layer, here's my backup if I need it. I'm just going to lock that so I don't accidentally select on it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select on this image, and I'm going to add a mask to it. Now there's a couple of ways to add a mask to this. One is to select the image first that you want to keep. So in this case, it's going to be this, or if I want to remove the sky, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab, let's see how this works. I'm going to go to my quick selection tool, remember it's W, and I'm just going to click and I'm going to drag through my sky layer like so. Do it incrementally with a quick selection tool. I've got enhance edge and sample layers on, but it doesn't really matter for sample layers at this point. To subtract, so I've selected the sky. Remember, you can also adjust the brush size on this. I've just hit plus instead, using square brackets. If you press Alt, I'm going to make this bigger, but if you press Alt, a bit hard to see with this cursor, but it will allow you to subtract, and you can actually see at the top here as I press Alt, it's going to switch between plus and minus, so I'm going to subtract this area and drag along. Now, quick selection tool works amazing for a lot of things, but it can be a little bit finicky where it starts missing things out. So you may wish to jump back through with your switch to your poly lasso tool and shift to add and close off that shape. Missed that little bit there. So shift to add all the way down here. So I'm selecting the sky at the moment, and Alt to subtract. Now I'm not going to complete this off just because I do want to show you what this does. So currently what I have selected is this big area up the top here, the sky layer. Now the mask button is right at the bottom of your layers panel. It's a little rectangle with a circle in the middle, and if I press that, what it's going to do is it's going to hide everything outside of the selection area. So I selected the sky, press the mask, everything outside of that is hidden, and if you look over here in your layers panel, there's my layer, there's the mask. Everything white in a mask is visible, everything black is invisible. If you go a grayscale, say you go 50% gray, and you can actually paint into this or reuse this mask. If you go B for brush, and I'm going to select about a 50% gray thereabouts, and I can actually paint in this, and what you'll notice is it doesn't actually make it completely invisible. So you'll notice I'm selected on the mask, not the layer. Very different. So the lighter I go with that, the less transparent, the less it's going to make that invisible. And you can actually see I can start painting this back, which is kind of cool. If I select pure black, then it's going to be a complete erase. If I select pure white, it's going to bring my image back. So completely reusable, and using things like the lasso tool and paint bucket G, you can bring back and manually paint back aspects of your image. Now I've completely destroyed this as a demo, so I'm going to just delete that mask. I'm going to right click on it, delete layer mask. There it is there. Let's do it again, but what I'm going to do this time is, rather than selecting this first, selecting the sky first, I am just going to not select anything, and I'm just going to apply the mask. And there it is there, and the mask is just pure white, which means everything is visible in it. So there's my layer, there's my mask. Again, I'll reiterate, the layer and the mask are two separate entities, and they just happen to be linked. There's a little chain link here, and you can turn that off. Not really useful for what we're doing at the moment, but it can be useful for many things. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select on that mask layer, and I'm going to grab my lasso tool in this case, and I'm going to click through. This is a nice geometric shape, so I'm quite happy with that, and I'm going to select the areas that I want to keep in this case. So it's a matter of selecting whether you want to keep something or you don't want to keep something. If you don't want to keep something, well, if you select an area and you go, I actually want the opposite, then you can inverse select it. I'm going to show you, I actually do that instead. I'm going to just push this around here, and again I'm going to select the sky. Great. And rather than, I've already got the mask applied, remember, I'm just going to grab the bucket tool, and this area is selected, and what I'm going to do is I want to get rid of that, so I'm going to go to and select black. So if you do want to get your default black and white colors together, you just hit D on your keyboard. It'll bring back the default colors, and if you wish to switch between them, X will allow you to switch. So this is good for doing mask stuff. So black is going to make everything invisible. Click in there. Oh my god, the background has just been made invisible, and then I can deselect that. Now if I have made a mistake on that, I can actually go through and fix it. So I could jump in with my brush tool, for example, and I can manually start painting back in that. So that's not my brush tool, it's my erase tool. So black is going to allow me to erase. And if you've got something like a hard round brush, which is one I use quite often, hard round without pressure for size, this can be really good for doing edges, because you just use the shift key and it allows you to do some nice straight edge to edge sort of stuff. Now if you want to bring stuff back, switch to white. I've just hit X there, and that will allow you to manually start painting stuff back. And you can bring it back and then start cutting it away. So it's nice and non-destructive. It allows you to do a really good deep etch and without it destroying your image. If you want to blur stuff out, which is extremely useful when we're blending later on, so this harsh edge isn't going to be great for me. I'm going to go to my brush, switch to black, and rather than doing a hard brush, I'm going to switch to something like a soft brush instead, and a nice big soft brush here. And you can see I can manually start blending that in. It's going to kill this area here. So what you can do as well, just to make this a little bit more easier, is grab your lasso tool and go, you know what, I don't want it to affect the edge of this building. So use your lasso tool to select around and select where you don't want it to affect. Just leave it on the outside. So select the area that you want it to blend, B for brush, and then just brush that through. And it's going to give me a nice little blend popping through there. Usually make it a bit bigger so that you don't get those harsh edges like there. And once again, this is very forgiving. So if at all I make a mistake and I go, oh no, I can switch this back to white and I can rebuild. And again, use your brush tools, use your lasso tools, use your paint bucket tools, and you can very quickly start deep etching and getting an image that's going to work for you for this. So there it is. There, I'm going to leave that as is. I'm going to rebuild as we go for this. At any point, what you can do is you can also go into the mask editing mode, where you double click on the mask, and there's actually a whole lot of options in here where you can actually see the background and you can do some repair. But I'll look into that in a little bit more detail later on when we do complex images, like trying to deep etch a tree, for example. So that will come up a little bit later. At any point, if you want to apply the mask, you can right click on it and apply it. That's going to make it permanent on that layer, but you can always leave it for quite a while until you decide to make it permanent for that particular layer. So there it is there. Let's have another look. What we're going to have a look at is doing some basic repair stuff, and we'll have a look at that in the next